I believe we are live.
Are we live?
I believe we are live. Hello. Hello and welcome if you are watching this. My name is Colin Hunter. I am the creator and writer of Kayfabe News. And I am a zebra in training in the referee documentary, The Ref Didn't See It, about professional wrestling's unsung heroes. I am here with the film's director and editor and the person running the machinery.
Poorly running the tech for our live here. Hi, I'm Sarah Geidlinger.
Sarah, you've been risking life and limb. Thank you. Standing outside of wrestling rings with a camera while people fly around and nearly crush you.
Hi everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a lot of exciting things to show you. This is our big launch party. Today we are live on Kickstarter, which is a big deal. It took us a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get to this point, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And today we launched the Kickstarter campaign for this movie, which is a big reason why that we are doing this launch party tonight. This passion project has been entirely out of pocket for the past year or so. So we're hoping that people can chip in and help us get it across the finish line. We're about 95% filmed with some of the people you're about to meet. And we're hoping that people will join on Kickstarter and follow our progress and maybe chip in. Now, what are we going to do? You're going to speak.
I'm going to speak. So this is my third documentary, and as Colin said, the most dangerous one yet. You think that you're pretty safe doing some filming for, for the purpose of storytelling to the masses or audience here. But to be honest, we are not that safe at the side of the ring sometimes. As Colin mentioned, sometimes I am close to being squished. And I'm sure we can get to Madman Pondo attesting to some of that. Where are we now?
Now, so we're going to talk to a few people who are in the movie, and we're going to show you about a 15-minute video. It's got all sorts of footage from the movie in it, and it's an interview that we did recently. And then we're going to do a Q&A with the people around here if anybody has any questions.
Please type them in the YouTube live chat if you have any questions.
Yes, the YouTube live chat is for questions, and we'll look there. So I'm just going to introduce the people that you see on your screen. I'm very pleased to introduce Mr. Madman Pondo, a deathmatch legend who's been wrestling for how many years?
34 years. 33 years too damn long.
And I had the great honor of refereeing a match with Madman Pondo recently, and he accidentally, I guess, came colliding with me in the corner, and I fell to the mat in what is called a ref bump.
You believe that accident part, though?
Yeah.
I bet.
So, Pondo, I swear something might have happened behind my back involving a stop sign when I was down. Did you hit somebody when I wasn't looking?
No.
You wouldn't do such a thing?
Not at all. Not at all.
Well, thank you for being here, Pondo.
No problem.
Sarah?
So next up is Vanessa Douglas. Vanessa is known as the ring as the Blood Countess Sabrina Kyle. Sabrina is also one of Colin's trainers at Off the Ropes Studio in Kitchener, Canada's only female-owned wrestling school. I haven't been learning any wrestling there myself. I've just been observing. But Vanessa, can you tell us why you started Off the Ropes?
I started Off the Ropes so there would be an inclusive place for everyone to train, where you didn't have to worry about if you're a female, the only people in here training with you are a female, unless you want to do co-ed classes. And, we have our morals and we stand by them, and you can talk to anybody here. That's why we started the gym.
Thank you. And one of the people that I've done my training with and been in a lot of training matches and some actual matches refereeing is Ryder Furlong, aka Robin Ellison. Along with being a wrestler, Ryder/Robin has done some of the amazing show art, some of the posters, and I think that our local there's one of them, really cool cartoon style posters. So, Robin, can you just tell us a bit, like, why do you wrestle and how does it connect to your art?
I wrestle because it's one of the greatest entertainment forms out there. It's live, you're improvising, you're reacting to the crowd. All angles are there, and to me, it's just the ultimate form of creation and storytelling. And since I've been a child, I've just wanted to create in any art form.
Yeah, well, you do it in performance art and visual art.
Is this a good time? I would just like to show this drawing that Robin did of Colin. I'm not sure if that was on the list for later, but check out this drawing that Robin did of Colin in his ref shirt. Can you guys see that? That's pretty great, right? Thank you, Robin, for creating this art
Yes.
for us.
Now,
Yeah, so I think it's my turn, right?
yes.
Go ahead.
Do you want to introduce Mr. Ken Kensington?
Sure, I would love to. Yes, Mr. Ken Kensington, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Boy, you have taught us a lot about refereeing, setting up rings. I think most importantly, something that we filmed that maybe I'm letting too many secrets out. No one's seen this part yet. Was you showed us like exactly what a ref should have in their like ref go bag, right? As part of Colin's training. So yeah, what's so important about like being ready, you know, when the time comes, you know, like do you travel with your ref gear all the time?
Yeah. There's been lots of situations where we've needed stuff, just things in general that on the fly you wouldn't even think of it. Like, oh, we need scissors, even just a pair of scissors, just, you know, zip ties, staple guns, never know, wire cutters. There's been so many moments where just even coming down to who's got nail trimmers, because someone needs to trim their nails. It's just, I was always been kind of prepared, and you know, tag ropes, lots of tag ropes. You're always looking for those sometimes, and they're non-existent. So I always thought I like to be prepared, and maybe it's just an OCD thing. I'm just fairly neat and just like to have everything in check. But you know, that's how I've always been.
Well,
Always ready to go.
If they need supplies or if they need a horticulturalist, you can
True.
also help them there. Ken is a horticulturalist at the Royal Botanical Gardens, along with being probably the most energetic referee, the most energetic person I think I've ever met. Kinetic Kenny. We struggle to keep up with you. Do you want to introduce Cameron?
Yeah. Sure. Actually, I'm going to tell another quick story. I was so impressed when you opened up your ref go bag because somebody said they needed a phone charger. It was like dire. They needed a phone charger really bad before the match. And you're like, what do you need? C? Do you need A? Do you need lightning? What do you need? I got you. And you had this whole bag of chargers ready for them. So that was very helpful.
Actually, I remember the first time I ever saw a wrestling referee outside of an arena. It was WWF. And one of the referees came out and he got in the truck and loaded the truck and drove the truck. And I couldn't believe it. I thought, wait a second, these referees are also roadies and they help us out behind the scenes. And that's all part of this movie. A referee does a lot more than just counting to 3. Speaking of referees.
How's that
for a
yeah.
segue?
No, I always want to give a little space in case somebody needs to talk. Zoom is so awkward, right? We're trying our best to have this party here, but Zoom can be awkward. Okay, so I want to introduce Cameron Adamson next. Cameron, we're so happy that you were able to join us. We know that you're traveling right now. So you're known as one of the best referees in Ontario. You've refed for Impact Wrestling. You're one of the hardest working people behind the scenes at wrestling shows. We recently talked to a veteran wrestler, Tommy Dreamer. Did I get the name right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Whew. And he had the absolute highest praise for you, Cameron. So what motivates you to do so much?
There's the motivation of it. I think, well, the motivation starts just from remembering what it was like as a kid watching wrestling, right? And when you're 5, 6, 7, right, and you're just watching it and you love it, then being lucky enough to have the opportunity to have, I think I talked about it when you interviewed me, right? It's, you have the best seat in the house, basically. Like, you're as close to the action as you can possibly be, and you get to be part of it. And, you know, it's really humbling, and you feel really lucky that you can do that. And then that also motivates you to want to help out as much as you can, because, you know, would you know, childhood Cameron you know, would he believe that he'd get to do this? And so that really does motivate you to want to do as much as you can and to help out as much as you can. And then, you know, the other thing is, you want to kind of try to, you're motivated to pay back, you know, the people that gave you a chance. Like for me, I was trained through Can-Am Wrestling School in Windsor, Ontario, right? And they had to put a lot of, because I'm not the smartest, I'm not the best, so they had to put a lot of time, a lot of effort into training me in the different aspects of professional wrestling, including how to be a referee. And then that motivates you to want to give back to the business. Especially, you know, when they get a message, they got a guy with no legs who wants to be part of it, and they still decide to, you know, see what you can do and train you. It motivates you to want to give back to Scott and to guys like Tommy Dreamer and all the different wrestlers who, you know, let me be part of the show and let me be part of something really special.
Yeah, and sometimes you're not just part of the show as a referee. There's a clip in the video that we're about to show. Keep an eye out for Cameron performing a little above and beyond the normal duties of a referee. No spoilers, just watch for it. You want to talk to Sarah?
Oh yeah, I haven't seen any of the footage you shot, so we'll see what it is. But, you know, sometimes you got to lay down the law a bit as a referee. You got to be tough with these guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really do. Okay, next I'm going to introduce, now, of course, Sarah, we share a name, and I know that your ring name is Revna, and my favorite thing about Revna, the character, is the scream, the rah, and but I actually don't know how to pronounce your last name. Sarah?
On Facebook it's Wallach, because I just got married, but it's Robert Smith.
It is Robert Smith? Okay, because I wasn't sure. I mean, my last name is Geidlinger, so, you know, like, I get it with names sometimes. But, Sarah, we've watched you in doing training at Off the Rope Studio. We've seen you in the ring. There's a wonderful still of a moment between you and Sabrina Kyle in the ring when Colin's reffing, that's out there on Colin's Facebook, or Kayfabe News maybe as well. Mm-hmm. For anyone who hasn't seen it yet. Do you know what I'm talking about? I think you've got
where I'm sitting on her.
Yeah, you've got Sabrina Kyle up against the turnbuckle and the ropes, and I think you're holding her down maybe with your bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's it like, sort of wrestling in the ring with your trainer?
It's definitely it's different because like I've never done that before, like wrestling with my trainer. She's also like one of my best friends, and like, you know, it's a lot of fun. Like we go out, we have so much fun doing it. It's a little nerve-wracking at first, but like once you're out there and you're like with your friends doing what you both love doing, like it's like a rush.
Yeah, it's amazing how much sort of camaraderie and friendship there is. Like, I also want to introduce, with Vanessa there is Jeff Black and Bruce Thunderstein, and behind them is Jensen. Hi, Jensen. Who's one of the most talented wrestlers I've seen. Jensen helped save the day and score a huge victory at a show recently. Mm-hmm. Jeff and even Bruce, everybody at Off the Ropes has been part of my training and helped me try to figure out how to maintain order in the ring, even when Pondo's in there. So I think we're going to show the video.
Yes, we are. Do you want to quickly mention, I know Harry D couldn't join, but do you want to quickly mention Harry D?
Oh, yes. I am wearing my Harry D t-shirt. This movie that we're making focuses in a large way on Harry D. Don't make me say his full last name. One of the great referees of Canada, one of the great wrestling referees overall. He's been doing it 30 years. I'm sure the wrestlers on this call know I'm sure everybody knows Harry D one way or another. Yes, I'm wearing my Harry D shirt, and he's here in spirit, and you'll see him in this video we're going to share as well.
Okay, so we are going to play this video now. Everybody sit back and enjoy.
So it's a real pleasure to have Sarah, I'm going to get to you, but we go way back. Colin, I go way back with Colin Hunter too, but he doesn't know that because I've been reading this guy's stuff forever. I used to write for the Waterloo Region Record, was in communications with one of our venerable institutions here in town at Perimeter, and I guess now working your way into wrestling, Colin, as a referee.
That's right. I wanted to make a movie about the unsung heroes of my favorite. I was going to say guilty pleasure, but now it's just a pleasure. Professional wrestling. I know I need to talk you into that.
A little bit.
But I figured instead of just making a movie about it from a third-person detached perspective, why don't I hop in the ring myself? You know, I'm too old, I think, to actually do the wrestling. I'm learning I may be too old to do the referee. It's more demanding than I thought.
I believe that.
Yeah. But I figured I'd help tell the story of these unsung heroes who are in every single match, but never get any of the attention. And some of that's by design. They're meant to be these invisible supporting cast members in the drama that unfolds in the ring.
Sarah Giedlinger is with us as well, the Bond Park podcast, and so much more. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
How is it you got yourself wrapped up in this particular project?
I'm not really sure. So Marshall Ward and I run the Bond Park podcast. He's my co-host, and we produce that show together. And he's a wrestling mega fan, and I never got it. I never understood. And I would say Marshall's an historian, like he's an expert on all things wrestling. He's quoted in books. Hi, Marshall. I know you're listening. So I talked Marshall into actually starting a wrestling podcast, and the whole shtick of the podcast is called An Unscripted Spectacle. And the whole thing is, I know nothing about wrestling or wrestlers or the whole world, or didn't when we started it, and Marshall knows everything. So, of course, Colin Hunter, being the creator of Kayfabe News, which I'm sure we'll get to, connected us to all of these wonderful guests, writers, wrestlers, promoters, referees, lots of people, managers in the field of wrestling, and they pop up on the screen, and I don't know who they are. I have to sort of say, "Oh, you have a world's best dad mug. You got kids?" And Marshall's laughing because he's been watching these people on TV for decades, right? So through this relationship of starting this podcast, it was sort of a natural progression to geek out a little bit about wrestling, and then Colin pitched this idea about him becoming a referee and that we follow the story.
It's a really interesting story. Can we go back to its roots, though, Colin? Where did wrestling first enter your life, and what made it stick like this?
What made it stick? I have no idea. I've tried to shake it. You know, my whole life, my mother, for years and years, said, "Oh, it's just a phase. He'll grow out of it." Well, here I am, 47, and I'm making a documentary about it, and I'm becoming a pro wrestling referee. So I think what hooked me about it from a very early age is the magic of it and the illusion of it. Earlier, you called it a sport, and I think that's a misnomer. I don't think it's a sport at all. I think it has much more in common with community theater, improv comedy, than any sort of sport. It looks like mixed martial arts, it looks like fighting, but really it's an elaborate, cooperative, I think a beautiful performance art.
So I'm glad you said that, because honestly, I chose sport because I didn't want to offend anyone. Like, I like to tease golfers sometimes. It's a game, not a sport. But I think that's a really good description of what wrestling is. It is absolutely theater, isn't it? Yeah.
And it's a blast. You know, the illusion in the ring is that these people are battling and fighting each other. But what I've learned in making this documentary is that it's anything but that. It's not a violent thing at all. If anything, they're doing their best to not hurt one another, put on a great show, but make sure they can do it the next night or the next weekend. So backstage at these wrestling shows, I swear, it's the kindest, most welcoming, friendly environment you could imagine, which is such a contrast to what happens just on the other side of the curtain. Wrestling, I don't think there is any other form of entertainment except maybe stand-up comedy where the performers are reading the room and the room is feeding back to them. So when you go to a small wrestling event, let's not think about WrestleMania and the giant Superdomes or anything, but you go to an independent wrestling event. They're happening all the time around Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge. You're right up close to the wrestling, and so they can hear your taunts and they taunt back, and it's a form of, it's almost like vaudevillian theater where you're encouraged to shout out and be part of the show. Without the audience, there is no show.
Sarah, as you went through this project, I mean, have you become a fan of the wrestling?
So, yes. And I say that reluctantly because I was very resistant. I thought, I'm an observer. I'll make this documentary. This is fun. I'll have the conversations. But it snuck up on me. We through this work, Colin and I share a lot of clips back and forth, and he'll share with me sort of what's something current that's happened or something silly from the past. And I think I sent back a message saying, "Oh, this is great. I love it. I've watched 3 times." And I said, "Oh, shoot." And he goes, "It's happening. Don't try and fight it. It's happening."
Became a wrestling fan against your will.
Against my will. And it really was. I had no idea from these indie shows that we go to. It really was the community spirit that got me. You know me. It's all about community and knowing your neighbor and trying to have a good time, you know, just finding the joy wherever you go.
Absolutely.
As much as you can, because you kind of have to, right? And it is toddlers next to grannies, next to, you know, big burly men next to like a group of ladies, and everyone is booing and clapping and shouting at the same time. And that invitation from the performers for the audience to get involved is so heartwarming. I was immediately hooked.
So
here I am.
While I don't confess to be a wrestling fan.
Not yet.
Hey, right, not yet. While I'm not yet a wrestling fan, and I'm not yet consuming it regularly, I'm not so dumb as to misunderstand what's going on in that ring and the inherent danger that may be involved. So you, no disrespect, you already mentioned 47. At your age, what has this journey been like for you trying to become, working your way up the ranks as a referee?
I'll tell you, it's more demanding than I thought it would be. Physically demanding. When you're in the ring, it may look on TV like these wrestlers can bounce around and feel nothing, but boy, those rings are harder than they look. And the referee's getting up and down and running around and pulling wrestlers apart. And so I was absolutely exhausted and beaten down the first number of times I've tried it. I've lost weight. I'm eating better. I'm watching my diet because I know I have to keep up with these athletes. It may not be a sport. It is not a sport, but they are athletes, all of them. And for me to even keep up and play the role that I have to play, I have to sort of move at the same speed that they're moving. Ultimately, I have to stay out of the way. These are big bodies, and I'm not supposed to get in the middle of them until I am, right? So the referee's job is to be essentially invisible and unnoticed until exactly the right moment. So to stay out of the way, stay out of the way, but then be exactly where they need to be when the bad guy is breaking the rules or the good guy has got a pin and may win the match.
So can you share some of the, I don't know if rehearsal's the right word, but what goes like the background before a match so that you know where you're to be, like how this is going to play out?
Well, the background is I went to school. I went to wrestling school, Off the Ropes Studio in Kitchener.
Canada's only female-owned wrestling
Canada's
school.
only female-owned wrestling school on Lancaster Street. And I told them I want to be a referee and I want to do this project. And the first thing they did was teach me what they teach the wrestlers, which is how to move in the ring, how to roll, how to not break your neck, how not to bang your head. It's very important if you actually want to do this regularly to know how not to injure yourself. So I went to school, they put me through the paces, and then, at the school we'd run practice matches. So there were trainees, there are classes for kids, classes for women. It's the most friendly environment compared to what you'd think it would be. And we ran practice matches, and I would get critiqued for everything from counting too fast to not asserting myself strongly enough to having my fly down on more than one occasion. You can even see in my very first match I refereed at Elements in Kitchener. The match is over and everything went okay, and the first thing I do is check to make sure my fly is up because I was trying to remember my training.
Did you suffer any sort of injury along the way?
I have not been injured. I have a sore hand sometimes from pounding the mat. But it's really the grind of moving around that ring quickly and getting up and down and making sure that you are really doing the part that you need to do to tell the story. You know, what would a Western movie be without the sheriff? Right? I'm the sheriff. There's a bad guy in town. There's a good guy who wants to beat him, but the sheriff is sort of this mediator, the lawmaker, who makes the whole tension work. That's if a bad guy is cheating in a wrestling match, but there's no referee to tell them stop that, then the casual fan, the first timer, like a Mike Farwell, doesn't necessarily know, like, oh, that's cheating. Okay, I get it. You're not allowed to do that. You know, you have to kind of tell the story for every new audience as you do it. And it's a lot of improv. They know the basic beats of what's going to happen, but in the ring, They are relying on a lot of training, a lot of practice to put on a show that looks like violence, but ultimately it's a play.
Sarah, what did you learn about this performance art as you went through the project?
Honestly, I'm still learning. So even just hearing Colin talk about the rules and learning what the rules are, and you might not know what's against the rules, et cetera. Even now, still, they'll be counting to 5 in a corner or 20 when somebody's outside the ring, and I'm like, what's happening now again? I mean, I've been filming at the edge of the ring and almost been smooshed by wrestlers before, so I had to learn to move very quickly because they fly off that top rope and onto the ground like it's no thing, you know? And I also learned very quickly. I showed up to the first 2 filming sessions with fancy gear and big ideas, and I realized very quickly that there's just no room for that. You just have to move fast for the camera and stay out of the way and get the best shot you can get. And sometimes it's a little shaky, or sometimes it's a little, out of focus, but you're doing the best that you can with the tools that you have in that environment.
Right, it emulates the raw feel.
Totally.
I
thought that, for sure, right?
It does.
It's, the wrestling that we're going to is not in front of 50,000 people. It's in front of a couple hundred. And we did a show at a elementary school. Lackner Woods Elementary School had a fall fair recently. So the ring is surrounded by hundreds of kids and parents, and they don't know who we are, and these are just kids in school. So the performers have to tell the story very quickly to a brand new audience of very excited kids who are hepped up on cotton candy. And it was the most lively, happy crowd we've seen at any wrestling show. And I include big WWE shows in that. I think that what's happening on the local independent level is so much more interactive and more fun because you can just really be immersed in the experience.
So your career, Colin, prior to moving into documentary filmmaking and becoming a referee, documentary filmmaking, still storytelling, which has been your career, either through print media or corporate communications, but also throughout that, you have built what I would describe as a large cult following, if it's fair to call it a cult following, for kayfabe news, kind of the Onion of the wrestling world. What is kayfabe news all about?
You actually just nailed it. From the very beginning, I thought if this could be considered the Onion of the wrestling world, that's perfect. That's what I'm going for. It's unabashedly ripping off the Onion style of satirical news headlines. But I use this subculture of wrestling both as sort of the subject matter of the satire and kind of just as the vehicle or the foil for making fun of something else in society. So it has that Onion tone of very straight-faced, deadpan journalism and the illusion that there's a big newsroom of journalists working very hard on these stories, but none of them are true. I've been doing this for 10 years, 3,000 some odd stories I've posted, millions of views, and all of it is made up to be funny. It's this sort of satirical news. So when we announced this documentary, a lot of people were like, wait a second, is this real? Are you actually making a documentary? And I have to assure them, no, this one's real. The other 3,000 things I said, not true.
I cried wolf, but not this time.
Yeah.
That speaks, though, to the audience that there is and the appetite that exists for wrestling.
Yeah, it's huge. It's enormous, and it still continues to be one of the most watched things in the world, professional wrestling. And of course, there's wrestling at its face value, which is a circus of action and shouting and big muscular bodies pounding each other. And then there's below that, I think there's a subculture of fans who understand what it is, understand the showbiz aspect of it, and can appreciate sort of a satirical take on it. It's opened a lot of doors. It opened a door to make a YouTube show where we actually had a broadcast with a newscaster delivering these insane headlines. And what it really did was, doing this for 10 years, the wrestlers out there in the world have gotten to know, not me, but kayfabe news. And so when I reached out and said, hey, I'm the guy who makes kayfabe news and I'm doing a documentary about wrestling, basically everybody has said yes, because they know that I'm not out to do a story that's a tell-all expose, and I'm not going to do anything that's sort of gotcha. I'm doing a celebration of wrestling from, there's a lot of documentaries about wrestling, but not a one about the referee, despite the referee being in every single match that's ever happened in wrestling. So,
what attracted you to the referee? Just because it's like that underdog, the invisible character in the play?
The unsung hero underdog story. In all of my journalism at the Record, and even when I was doing science communications about theoretical physicists, I'm always looking for the unsung hero, the underdog who's doing something different, something unique that falls outside sort of the other normal beats and the normal stories. So yeah, everybody focuses on the wrestlers as they're supposed to. They are the stars of the show. But there are supporting actors. You know, there's an Oscar category for the supporting actor. But there's never been a wrestling award, or there's very few. Some of the best referees have been recognized by their peers. One of them is in our movie. Actually, a few of them in our movie. Earl Hebner is one of the most famous referees for the so-called Montreal Screwjob, a famous wrestling happening from many years ago. But ultimately, these are the people who don't ever get the spotlight, which has always been my favorite topic of journalism.
Sarah, for you, this just adds another element to an increasingly broad and, dare I say, eclectic portfolio.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, it really does. And it's been a super exciting time to follow. You know, we started this story as though we're following Colin on his journey, but really it's been about the rest of the referees that we've met along the way. Emily Parker, who's a second-generation ref following in her late father's footsteps. Cameron Adamson, who's from Windsor, referees with no legs. Ken Kensington, we call Kinetic Ken, with lots of energy in the ring. And I'd say the longest running Ontario referee, Harry D.
Yep.
Well respected.
The top referee in Canada.
Top referee, thank you.
Every wrestler says, if you're going to make a movie about referees, you have to talk to Harry D. And so he's my Obi-Wan Kenobi, teaching me the ins and outs of how to do this. And it's amazing how real it does feel when you're actually in there and doing it. I don't pretend to be enforcing the rules. I'm trying my best to enforce the rules, and I'm getting frustrated when those bad guys, the heels, won't listen to me.
So good, so good. Where, most importantly, are we going to be able to see The Ref Didn't See It?
So we're still in production at the moment, but we're wrapping that up, and everyone can go to therefmovie.com to follow our journey. We'll be launching a Kickstarter in a few weeks.
Therefmovie.com.
And we're back.
And we're back now. Yeah. Hi, everybody.
Hello. So, thank you for watching that. Oh, hello. We want to open it up if anybody has questions in the YouTube chat for the gang. I'll ask sort of open-endedly, but I'll start with Vanessa, my guru in training. Vanessa and Jeff were in my very first match. And I don't think I messed it up too much. But Vanessa, like, how important is a referee to what you guys do?
The referee is the most important part of the match. So a good referee can make a match great, and a bad referee can make a match awful.
Yeah. And
as on the news, the referee is also, when needed, the first line of defense for us in the ring as well.
Yeah. Cameron, can you speak to that a bit? Unless you're frozen.
No, I'm
okay.
I'm not frozen, and I think for me, trained to be a referee, it kind of or I guess I learned in that training process how important a referee is to a match, right? Growing up as a fan, my focus was always on Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin, or Cena and The Rock, or when I was really young, Hogan and Andre. And I think the big thing about professional wrestling school is, more than anything else, it opened my eyes up to how important so many different people are to make a wrestling show successful, and especially as somebody who's training for it, how important a referee is, to make sure that the wrestlers are getting the cues that they need, are getting the times that they need, are being able to communicate with each other, in some cases through me, and that if somebody is, knock on wood, if somebody does get injured, or there is a need to get assistance, that you as a referee can be there to do that, and to try to keep everybody as safe as possible. And all the things that you have to think about as a referee, where are the cameras so you're not in the way, so the cameras get what they need to get from the wrestlers and from the stars. It's just been a really eye-opening experience since I started at Can-Am Wrestling School, learning just how much a referee adds to a match and how important they are. Yeah, and that's something. So again, it goes back to that question of motivation at the start, right? That really motivates you to want to work as hard as you can when you learn how important a referee is to a successful match and a successful show.
Yeah. Well, one of the referees that we're really profiling in this movie, she couldn't join us tonight, Emily Parker. She did send a quick little video, so we just want to play that for everybody.
Hi there, my name is Emily Parker. I am a second-generation referee following in the footsteps of my father, Frank Parker. And I'm super excited to be a part of this documentary that is following pro wrestling referees, because I think it's really important that the world sees what we do. And if this documentary happens to inspire any young girls or women to get into the ring and give it a try, then that is amazing too.
And there's a question here in the YouTube chat.
Now go.
Sorry, there's a question in the YouTube chat. Do a lot of referees start out as wrestlers themselves? Or do they always just referee? Cameron, you wanted to be a wrestler. Ken, you wanted to be a wrestler, didn't you?
I did, yeah. And didn't work out well.
How
It was a
come?
different era back then.
You move so fast in the ring.
Yeah. Not fast enough for some of those bigger guys. But no, it was a different era and a different time. Back when I was 16, I was not the ideal size, to be quite honest. So I found out at a very young age it was not everything that it was going to be. But on another level, there also showed me that there was another way to the main event. So at least that's how I like to put it. There is a role for everybody in wrestling. You just have to kind of find what that is. That's why I enjoy what I'm doing now.
Cameron, were you planning to be a wrestler?
Not really. No, it's funny. I never really had any particular goals when I started. I kind of started at wrestling school in a funny way. I was I used to do stand-up comedy, and I was watching a documentary about one of maybe the greatest manager of all time. If not, I would say maybe number two, Bobby the Brain Heenan. And in the documentary, one of I forget who it was, but somebody mentioned that Bobby the Brain Heenan had the same type of timing and the same abilities as the greatest of stand-up comics. And so I figured it might be kind of fun and could help with my stand-up if I went to professional wrestling school. And so I just sent a message to a local school, and I just said, originally I'd even mentioned the idea of being a manager. I said, I have no legs, but despite that, I think I'm fairly athletic and could take some bumps. So I basically just said, like, if you be so kind enough and let me kind of try it out and see what I can do and what I'm capable of. And just in the process of that, they started me out just like every other student. I mean, they did some minor modifications. So when the other students would do jumping jacks, I would do push-ups, or I would do dips instead of squats, that type of thing. But I kind of kept up with all the students in terms of the athletic side of it. And then it was my first trainer, Johnny Devine, as well as Scott Demorse, thought I might make a good referee and suggested I try that. And one thing kind of led to the other. So I was just always just so happy to be a part of it. I never really had any expectations as to where I would go beyond that. And it just kind of worked out that they thought I'd make a good referee. And I've been lucky enough to get to do that a few times.
And Madman Pondo, you've been in wrestling a long time. I've been in wrestling a very short time as a ref. What can you tell me, one piece of advice for a referee in training from a veteran of the ring?
Well, I wanted to go back and answer the Allison H's question.
Oh yeah.
So, in my 34 years, as a wrestler is trying, just to get them ring appearance, ring awareness, and all that, they do make a lot of trainees referee before they become wrestlers. So yes, a lot of it's opposite. It's not wrestlers that are refs. It's refs that want to become wrestlers. What was the question you just asked me? I'm sorry, I got wind.
No, that was a great answer. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
I asked you what piece of advice would you have to a newcomer ref like myself?
So what's the difference between a new referee and a large supreme pizza?
No idea.
No answer. A large supreme pizza can feed a family of 4. So if you are getting into this for the money, don't think that you go straight to WWE or you go straight to AEW. You have to work just as hard as wrestlers do. So keep your day jobs. Figure out a school that will be beneficial to both your job and to the reffing business. And yeah, that'd be my advice. Keep your job, but also learn to be a referee.
Thank you.
Well, that's great advice. Were there any more questions before we?
I think we're good.
You think we're good? Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us, everybody who's watching. Tell my kids to go to bed. And I want to thank you all for joining us. Ken Kensington, Robin Ellison, Jeff Black, Sabrina Kyle Jensen, Bruce Thunderstein, Sarah Wellick, Robert Smith, Revna, Cameron Adamson, and Madman Pondo. Thank you so much for joining us. I just quickly want to tell you, in addition to the artwork that Robin created for us of Colin, I'm just going to put it up here again. Here, I believe, yeah, this one right here, this amazing artwork of Colin here. Thank you so much for that. Can you guys see that? Oh, it's coming up. There you go. In addition to that piece of artwork, we're working with another artist, Stacey Case, who made this beautiful poster that you see in the bottom right corner. This sort of, retro vintage looking, screen print poster. And that's going to be something that's available in print on our Kickstarter as part of the crowdfunding campaign support levels. We've got all kinds of cool rewards for everyone to check out. So, it takes a lot of work to get to this point. We're making this movie so that we can bring the joy of wrestling and the joy of, watching not just Colin's journey, like I said earlier in our video, but, the stories of all the people that you see in front of us and so many more that you haven't met yet. We really want to bring this story to the masses. So please consider chipping in. And if you can't chip in at therefmovie.com, follow the link to Kickstarter. If you can't chip in, we just ask that you share the link, annoy your family, bug your friends, send it to your group chats, post it on your socials. Please just spread the word, because a strong start now within these first few, 24 hours of launching the campaign is going to determine if we have a successful campaign or not. And we'd really like to be successful in post-production. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. Please check out therefmovie.com. Please consider supporting. Please share. Have I said it enough times?
I think so.
Okay. All right.
It's time to go home. All right. So 1, 2, 3, ring the bell. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for
We'll keep
joining
you
us.
posted.